The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Donald, nice to talk to you.
Hello, Greta.
I've got a long list today of questions for you, a lot of topics. Let me start with the
You
first one.
always do, Greta. You always do.
Well, this time I wrote them all down.
Well, that's
anyway,
good.
Governor Rick Perry said that he had dinner with you recently and that you do not believe the president's birth certificate is real or not. Is the governor correct that you don't believe it? I thought that you were satisfied.
I'm not a major believer. I mean, I don't know how it just miraculously appeared, and we'll see what happens, but I've never been a major believer. All of a sudden, after years and years, it was produced out of nowhere. Some people have serious doubts as to its validity. And I frankly really want to get on to much more important subjects, although that's a very important one, because if in fact it's not 100%, he's not supposed to be the president of this country, which is a pretty important fact. But nevertheless, I want to talk about jobs. I want to talk about the economy. I want to talk about how China and OPEC and others are ripping us off. But I'm not a fan.
I thought last April that it was finally put to rest with you.
No, never to rest. I'm at a point where I say, look, the country is going to hell in a handbasket, and something has to be done about it. And we shouldn't be talking about the birth certificate, but people love to talk about it. For instance, it's your first question. I guess at a luncheon or at an interview, Governor Perry had mentioned that I said that I'm not a big believer, and I'm not. I mean, people look at the hospital. There are no records that his mother was ever there. There are many other things that are really suspect. So, after years of Hillary wanting it and McCain wanting it and everybody wanting it, and I put the big pressure on, all of a sudden it appears, and people have real questions about the validity. Now, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about jobs. I want to talk about how to get this country great again, but I'm not a big fan.
All right. Well, I'm convinced it's the real deal. So,
well, that's good. I'm glad you are. That's okay. And some people are, and some people aren't. And I'm just not as easily convinced.
Okay. The other thing, you're very active on Twitter, and you just tweeted recently, does Barack Obama ever work? He's constantly campaigning and fundraising at both the taxpayers' dime and time. Not fair. What provoked that?
Well, it is not fair. I mean, I watch television every night. He's making speeches. He's taking Air Force One and all of these great planes that we have with huge crews and huge amounts of security and limos and everything else all over the place. He's not paying for it with his campaign, and yet he's campaigning. And I think it's very unfair. I mean, Air Force One, which is a 747 airplane, a Boeing 747, costs hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour to fly and hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour just to sit at airports. And why isn't he paying for this? I mean, he's going all over the place. He's campaigning. That's all he does is campaign. He ought to focus. He ought to sit behind his desk in Washington and get the country properly running again.
Does it make a difference to you if, A, the campaign pays for part of it, it's part official business, part campaign, and B, that is what presidents have historically done? My guess is that President Bush 43 likewise, because when he traveled to fundraisers, he had to travel on Air Force One. But I'm under the understanding that campaigns pay a share of it, and the taxpayers for any official business that's done along the way pay that.
Well, nobody's ever done it like this. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he's constantly out campaigning, and he'll make a speech, and he'll make another speech. They're campaign speeches. I mean, there's a difference between work and campaigning. Now, campaigning is work, too, but that's work that he should be paying for out of all the money that he's raising from I don't know who, because it's hard to believe people are contributing, but out of all of the money that he's raising.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.